Every day for the past 10 years, Helen woke up before sunrise, her body aching with a deep, bone-penetrating cold. It wasn't the typical chill of a winter morning, but an icy grip of fear that seemed to seep into her very bones. She would stare at Joseph sleeping beside her, his face creased with age, his breath forming little clouds in the frigid air. And she wondered how she'd let things get so bad. Helen never pictured her life turning out this way. At 26, she seemed to have everything she once thought she wanted: 2 daughters, a hardworking husband, and the quiet rhythm of farm life. Yet, on many nights, lying awake with only the chirping of crickets for company, she wondered when her dream had turned into a cage she couldn't escape. She had always craved simplicity. Cities overwhelmed her with their noise and expectations. The countryside felt safer, calmer. So when Joseph, her childhood teacher and longtime figure in her life, confessed his love after she finished college, she thought it was destiny. Joseph had been her constant, the man who taught her to read, who corrected her handwriting, who opened her eyes to literature. She admired him deeply. At 16, she realized the way her stomach fluttered when he praised her work. But he had always kept his distance, never once breaking the boundaries of teacher and student, not until she was grown. One evening, when Joseph came to visit, he confessed his feelings. Helen's father was furious. To him, Joseph had crossed the line. You watched her grow up. This isn't love, it's grooming. But Helen refused to see it that way. To her, she was an adult making her own choices, and Joseph was the man she wanted. That night, defying her father's wrath, she met Joseph under the cover of darkness. In the back of his car, she gave herself to him, convinced it was proof of real love. By dawn, she had declared her decision: I'm marrying Joseph. Her father never forgave her. They built a life together on Joseph's farm, far from town and judgmental stares. At first, it felt like the peace she had fought for. But as the years passed, the charm of homemade bread and hand-stitched clothes wore thin. At 26, Helen felt 56. The marriage that once seemed like freedom now felt like confinement. One afternoon, while picking up her daughters from school, Helen met Betty, their new young teacher. She was radiant, confident, untouched by the weight Helen carried. Betty was 21, the same age Helen had been when she bound her life to Joseph. Something about her stirred feelings Helen hadn't let herself acknowledge in years. That attraction deepened when Betty came to visit during the girls' illness. A small scratch on Helen's hand became the excuse for Betty's touch. Their eyes met, and in that brief silence, something unspoken passed between them. Later, a walk through the fields ended with a kiss, gentle, hesitant, but charged with a passion Helen hadn't felt in years. But Joseph saw. He stood a few feet away, devastated. Words were exchanged, accusations heavy in the air. That night, Joseph left, declaring their marriage over. For Helen, it wasn't fear or guilt that followed, it was relief. As the years went on, Helen's feelings for Betty grew stronger, leading them to a love that was passionate and comforting at the same time. Joseph, on the other hand, found solace in the companionship of an old friend, Sarah. He never married again, spending his days on the farm and his evenings with Sarah. The sight of Joseph with another woman didn't bring Helen anything but understanding. She realized that life wasn't meant to be a solitary journey. Sometimes the path you choose leads you back to where you started, not as a surrender, but as a new beginning. Years later, one crisp autumn day, Helen and Betty were picnicking in the very same field where their love story began. Around them, the vibrant colors of fall leaves crunched underfoot, creating a picturesque backdrop for their love. The memory of Joseph and the life they'd shared still lingered, but it was now part of their story, a chapter closed with understanding and forgiveness. The love between Helen and Betty continued to deepen, proving that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations.